My friends, Romans, countrymen, Black people, how are you?
Good.
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 Good
All
to see
good.
you.
All good. So
All
look,
good.
we're gonna jump right in here because we don't have a lot of time. This is a very special panel to me because we are in a global pandemic and like race revolution at the same time. And the people that I find affected the most intensely right now are 8 to 12-year-olds. And this is just based on interactions I've had with some kids lately. And these are the books that you all are writing. You are writing the books to the preteens. And it's such a pivotal time in a person's life. So the first question I want to ask all of you middle grade wonders is why? Why middle grade? Why 8 to 12?
For me, that's the age where everything can happen. They're so open. They're not jaded. They're haven't, you can mold them. And they're so excited about being molded. And being a teacher, I could see like sixth grade, they are ready to learn and to get their identity, get the tools to shape their identity. And they can ask questions and they're not afraid to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
That
for me,
that was Alicia D. Williams, by the way, friends. I didn't introduce anyone. There's that piece. Say your name before you answer so people know who you are and your
Tell
book.
them who you are. Tell them who you are, Alicia.
Hi, I'm Alicia D. Williams, the author of Genesis Begins Again.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'm Karen Strong. I'm the author of Just South of Home. And to answer your question, I think I love middle grades because this is the first time kids are starting to see themselves separate from their families. They're starting to see themselves as a whole person and seeing different ways of thinking on their own. So that's for me. That's why I love this age.
My name is Kwame Mbalia. I am the author of the Tristan Strong series. And I'm going to piggyback a little bit off of what Karen said. And I read something a while ago, and, we can't have, nothing's ever black and white. But I read that when you're writing for young adult, you're looking, at how you are changing inside, right? Mm-hmm. And when you're writing for middle grade, you're looking at how the world is changing around you. Similar to what you said, Karen, it's the first time you're out on your own, you're exploring. When you're in school, it might be the first time that you're switching classes for different subjects and stuff like that. So you're seeing a little bit more of how the world works on your own terms with no or relatively minor adult, filters put in front of you. You get to experience as a whole for the first time. And I also, for me, middle grade humor is just like funny. It's like potty humor, but it's still innocent potty humor. You know what I mean? And that's just like that's where I thrive personally. So,
yes, you do.
You know it. You all know it. I ain't got no shame about it.
I need like a gum baby doll that will just talk to me and yell at me before I go to sleep and tell me to get my stuff together. So I will speak for myself here, though I know I'm probably speaking for all four of us. Like when I was a middle schooler, the only book available to me with me in it was Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry. And that was a great book, but it's sad to me that it was the only one. How does it feel? First of all, was that true for you guys too? Like, did you ever see yourselves reflected as a middle schooler? Did you see yourself reflected in any books at all?
It's funny you asked that because I was a ferocious reader. And I remember the bookmobile pulling up around, and I found my solace in a bookmobile. But I cannot, for the life of me, recall one single book that I saw myself in, not even Roll of Thunder. And I don't even remember somebody saying, well, this is the one book that you can read because they have characters that look like you. Nothing. So it saddens me that I can't say one book that shaped me.
Yeah. A word.
For me, and I'm looking around because my desk is littered. Like if you could see my desk, this is just an example. Like imagine this all over my desk. I just have stacks of books. But I'm trying to remember when Bud Not Buddy was written.
Here, I have it. I can pull it up here.
And Monster.
Monster was 1999.
99. So that's.
So I was like, so was But Not Buddy. They both were
Okay.
1999. So I was in high school by then.
So that's high school.
Is
Yeah.
he saying that? Are you saying that's a book you remember as a kid?
No, I remember it vaguely, but it could be because it was high school and not necessarily middle school.
Okay, you just made me feel really old for a second.
Yeah. No, but for me,
that's saying, yeah.
No.
Go ahead, Kwame.
For me, it's that I always say that I feel like my parents did an above average, a super job of scouring. You know, I actually talked to my mother about this. I was like, how did you find so many books with African and African American characters? And she was like we scoured like the planet. You know, they used to have an exchange program where they would go across to Accra, Ghana, and they would look in bookstores there to find books to bring back, just so that we would have reading material in our house with people and characters that look like us. That's how hard it was at that time. And so it's not that, you know, there was this, what we're seeing now, where there's this incredible array of not just characters experiencing painful circumstances, but a wide of joy, of happiness, sadness, you know, and just growing up. It's that, you know, you had to work hard to find that back then. And it's not exactly easy now either.
Yeah. I mean, I gave up. I just started writing nonfiction. I started reading nonfiction. I started reading science and space and stuff like that because I just couldn't see it. So I went straight into the science.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like The Watsons Go to Birmingham was 1995, and Roll of Thunder was 1976. It's 20 years. It's 21 years, right? Like 19 years, but like it's like 2 decades of just a dearth. And I know, from what I do believe, I know Walter Dean Myers was writing books in the 80s. Jacqueline Woodson was writing books in the 80s and 90s, but like those were not books that I had access to or that I even knew about. Right. How does it feel for you all now to be writing these books? Because I remember how my identity formation was stunted by the lack of books with me in them. And now you guys are writing books that I would have loved to have had when I was in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. How does it feel to be telling these stories?
I feel that, you know, Alicia, you can vouch for this. When we had 5 Black girl-led in middle grade books in 2019, all 5 girls, totally different. It was just amazing to me because we didn't have that. And if we did have middle grade, it would have to speak for everyone. But what I love about what's happening now is that we have all these different books, all these different experiences, because we're not a monolith. So for me, I am jealous of the kids today because they have so much to choose from.
I do agree. And when you asked that, Nic, it took me back because of the importance of what we read shaped us, right? As you were talking, Kwame, it just shapes our outside world. And I'm giving my age, but that whole Dick and Jane series and seeing the blonde hair and just seeing the dog and this perfect world, and it didn't even, nothing in those books looked remotely like the world I lived in. Inner city Detroit, the problems I had in the home, the dysfunction, it didn't look like it, but that's what America to me was, and that's what life was supposed to be. And how do you even get that? And where do I fit in this? And now to write a story, and like you said, Karen, that we have Black joy and girls being surfer girls. We have Black joy and we have experience. Now, so we have the good and we have the supernatural stuff and we have the mystery stuff and then we have the realistic stuff because that always stays there. So for our kids now to not see a Dick and Jane book, but to see I have a ghost story here. I have this, and to feel these different parts of themselves, it pleases me. Like my audience, I remember W.E.B. Du Bois, I was reading, he said, my audience are Black people, number one. Like if anybody else reads it, that's great. But we know how important it is because our very lives depend on it. Our very lives depend on the images that we put out and how we need to control this narrative. Because if they don't see us and we don't see ourselves, we don't have this to speak up, to say, I am not a monolith. I could wear Gothic. I could wear this. I could do this, right? So to me, I feel like, you know how we had this feeling of, I don't know if anybody else felt it, like, do I deserve this? Do I need to be here? Do I have enough to say? Right? This imposter syndrome. When we look around, we all have movements. Some of us may not be out on the street marching. And I'm not saying we're activists, but I'm saying we have a voice that we need to say, some stories that we need to say. And I think we're here for this reason for this.
And yeah, you got to bear witness. Like what our elders always told us, you have to bear witness. And that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
And I think of, stories that I enjoyed reading as a child. They were adventure stories, they were mysteries, and so I'm thinking of Encyclopedia Brown, and I'm thinking of the Hardy Boys, and, Nancy Drew. I'm thinking of the Boxcar Children. I'm thinking of the Babysitter's Club, right? I'm thinking of all these books, and, at that age, I'm like, whatever, I'm going to go do the same adventure that they're doing, right? And now you come, you flash forward now and you see, Just South of Home, or you see the Parker Inheritance, or you see The Last Days of Summer. All of these books with adventures and mysteries written and centering, Black children. I am incredibly jealous. Like, I am incredibly jealous. I think that would have done wonders, not only for me, but for the kids who I grew up with in the neighborhood, exploring and running around with.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've been doing a lot of yakking about the importance of reading stories that are not centered on the stories about Black kids and Black people that are not centered on race struggles and oppression and pain. Because I'm gonna, being an author who is telling a story of Blackness is activism, because in what we're doing, we are humanizing ourselves, we're humanizing our children, and we're forcing people to acknowledge that, like, oh wait, this person is a person just like I am. Kwame in Tristan Strong Punches a Hole in the Sky, we see mythology, but it's also a beautiful take on the power of learning your history. And when you were writing that book, what did that feel like? What did it feel like taking these folk tales and these things that are so integral to our culture that a lot of us don't even know about? What did it feel like to infuse that into a piece of writing that is an adventure story like the ones that you're saying you loved?
It was joyous, it was fun, which I think is what reading should be. Reading should be fun, exploratory, and at the end of it, when you close the book, you may not know it, but you have been left with some nugget of information, some seed, right? And like I said, you might not know that seed is there, but a month later, a year later, you're reading something and you're like, I read this before. I know this character.
Yeah.
That happened with me, because we were raised, in school, we always read Greek mythology or whatever.
Yep.
We always read, and so reading that history, it having so much of that history given to us, it lays a foundation. And so what I'm trying to do, and what I'm sure you all are trying to do, is lay that foundation, because these middle grade readers might not totally understand it yet. But when a time comes, when they're in high school and they're doing a report and they're like, I know this person, I know this event, I know this time in history, you have laid that foundation for them. You have built that scaffolding that they can then begin synthesizing their own information about their own history for. That's what we're here for. We're not here to present textbooks. We're here to lay a trail for them to follow on their own at their own speed.
We're not here to give you a history lesson. I think what we really want to do the first most is to tell a good story. We're storytellers. We want to tell a good story and we want to entertain. And if we also want to give some facts, we can, but I think at the end of the day, the kids want to be told a good story, and Black kids need and deserve a good story.
Karen, first of all, I love this panel because you all are writing such different things. You pull on the tradition of Haints in your book. in your debut. And I want you to talk a little bit about that, because like Kwame and like Tristan Strong, even the word haint is it has a very specific history, and you're kind of imbuing your story with the supernatural, but like it's a very specific type of supernatural. Talk to us about that for a second.
Yeah, so haints is a very specific kind of Black Southern culture kind of thing. My elders told me about the haints, and when I was growing up, a haint was basically someone who was wronged, someone who was done wrong, and who was looking for revenge. And if you happen to get in the path of this haint, no matter if you're not the person that did them wrong, watch out. Yep. So I wanted to put a twist on it where you have a situation where you do have these haints who are living in this town who have been done wrong. I mean, they have literally been victims of racial terrorism. And what happens when a town forgets so much that the haints come back to haunt them? I mean, that's the whole point of the whole story. Your past comes back to haunt you. You have to acknowledge the past. As we see, the past can repeat itself. We're seeing that right now, with the Black Lives Matter thing. This is not something new. This has not happened 2 weeks ago. This has been happening for a long time. And so what I wanted to say, I did not want it to be a history lesson, like, oh, racial terrorism happened. I wanted to focus on a specific Black family and how they're handling this past that's literally haunting them. But yeah, haints has definitely got a deep Southern culture. And I know me and Kwame talked about this before, about how we love the mythos of Black Southern culture and how it's so deep and it's very varied. I mean, this is deep South Georgia that I'm talking about, but Texas, North Carolina, South Carolina, even Florida, they have their own kind of mythos. It's all different, which is what I love.
And Alicia, you take on colorism in a very just like smack on, and were rewarded greatly for it. Like your book won quite a number of awards, and it was very deserving. It also makes it super timely right now. What you were writing about. When did you write it?
When did
you write Genesis Begins Again?
Started back in 2011.
Right. Okay. See, so this is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
right? You started Genesis Begins Again back in 2011. Here we are in 2020, and it is wildly relevant, right? We are talking about race. We're talking about colorism. We're talking about what it means to kind of be in this third space where some people are very, very light and are white presenting, but they are Black. Like there's a lot of talk about race and racism, and Genesis Begins Again tackles colorism in a very, like I said, like just right head on. Why was it important for you to write this book for this age group?
I get that question a lot, and that's, to be honest, that's the voice that came to me. And maybe it's because I remember specifically being that age and not feeling beautiful at all, not feeling seen at all, and being compared to my light-skinned cousins, but also being acutely aware of those church ladies only complimenting certain people, certain kids, and then you got a good personality. I remember so many instances of these within our own family, and I thought, and honestly, the book was about a girl that was actually heavyset and was bullied for being heavyset, because I was that too. But it was pared down, and when it got to the heart of this, I couldn't deny it. I was so afraid of it, because if you think about it, when we talk about these issues, we have done it, but it's been for a moment, and then we push past. School Days did it, and they did a great job, and we laughed about the jigaboos and wannabes, and it was great. But you have it in these pockets, but we still do it to each other. And as I was writing it, I got so much deeper into the hashtag Team Light Skin, hashtag Team Dark Skin, and I was like, we're still doing it to ourselves. Now, let somebody else come for us outside of our own culture. We coming for you. But we do it like parents do it and it's not a thing that sometimes done intentionally. But even my mom is still like, talks about my dark gums and talks about my daughters. I was like, Mom, I wrote a whole book on this. And it's so ingrained. And so as I was writing this, I became aware as well our kids, 5 years
Yeah.
old.
Yeah.
How do you know at 5 years old that you got dark skin and
Exactly.
you're not lovable, right? How do you know to compare yourself? So when you say timely, I think it's always been time for it.
Yeah, you're right.
And I wish honestly that my heart is wanting to do more storytelling of a different kind, but that was the first thing that came to me, that story. And it's so hard hitting that I think I cried so much writing it. But
I mean, even that's saying something though. Like, is the same true for you, Kwame, and for you, Karen? Because I find that these are not. It's not easy to write. It's not easy to write books where Black kids are just being human. Like, there's a part of me that is afraid that I'm not allowed to write these kinds of books because I never saw them. And there's also this message that we get from reading throughout our lives and never seeing ourselves like solving the mystery or going on the adventure, that like we're not allowed to do those things. So I remember having this very acute fear that nobody would be interested in a Black kid who liked science, or nobody's going to be interested in a Black kid who wants to solve a mystery. Was it hard? What has the writing process been like the cognitive and emotional process of telling these stories?
Well, I know for me, with Just South of Home, Alicia, just like you, my family, we were born and raised in the rural South. And I personally just wanted to treat, like, almost a tribute to them of what they've been through, living in the rural South. And I felt, for me, like, why can't we have a full dimensional character? Like my character, Sarah, she's an aspiring astrobiologist. She loves Saturn. She loves all these different things. And one of the things I wanted to make very sure of when I was writing this was to show this family and these family members their full selves before diving into the hard stuff, because I wanted the readers to connect to them on a personal level before they start seeing the outside coming into their family. So I think you can have both. I think people, they harp on Black pain, but I personally, for me, I wanted to acknowledge the pain because it needs to be said. I needed to acknowledge the truth telling, and want to bear witness to it. But I also wanted to show that, you know, Sarah, she has firm problems. She's dealing with this 5-finger discount cousin she got in her house. She's got a lot of different things going on. But, you know, she also needs to acknowledge the truth of what happened to her family and her lineage too. You can do all of this stuff. We're all different things. We're not all bad. We're not all good. We have all different kinds of feelings. And so that's what I wanted to show.
And Karen, I think you're absolutely right about that, because if you think about historically, that argument has always been there.
It has.
It has been there. During Harlem Renaissance, Richard Wright and them were getting mad with Zora Neale Hurston for writing Black Joy. And you know, we've always had this tug of war on which stories should we tell or focus on within our communities. But which does disservice, because it keeps us tackling instead of storytelling. And I think all of these stories bear witness to what we're going through. There's a space for them because our audience is so big and at different levels, and they need different things. We all needed different things. You needed a girl who loves science. I needed a girl who was a fat girl that looked like me, you know, and we all need those things. We needed the mythology. We all need those things. So when we say that doesn't deserve a spot because we need to focus on this, we alienate those kids that are like, in my home, this is what I needed to see. So I think I'm glad you put both of those in there. It serves a story for it.
And I think for me, like one of the insidious things about racism and this idea of white supremacy is that a lot of times the evil of it has been so ingrained of it in ourselves that we do the work for them, right? And that we perpetuate these same evils upon ourselves and within our people and our families even, as you were speaking of, Alicia. And so for me, what I find myself struggling against is almost going too far to the other side, where I am afraid of writing Black characters with negative characteristics or traits, right? Of a 5-finger discount, of loud and angry, of mean, you know. I'm afraid of portraying this because, you know, for so often that's what we have seen in media. You know, we are reduced to this one flat caricature instead of being a well-rounded person who might have that, but has other traits and characteristics that balances that out because they're human. And so that's what I have to wrestle with myself. Like, all right, Kwame, who, you know, is this character? What are we doing with them? What do they want? Not just, you know, oh, this is the angry person. This is the funny person. They crack jokes, the class clown, reducing them to that flat narrative. And so it's an ongoing battle. I will probably wrestle with that for the rest of my life. Because I don't know, it's just something about, I don't want to show the bad side of Black people because that is all that has been shown, you know, up for a long time in our life.
And I agree with that. I struggle so much with that. Like, and this father, is he going to perpetuate a stereotype?
Yeah, exactly.
So, it's so real, right?
Same thing with my grandmother, Mrs. Green.
But we can't even have this because we're so afraid to show realness. But then when I thought about it, it's like, but we have to peel back the layer. Why does he drink? Systematically, he's been beaten down for so long. So why do we really cope? How do we cope? What's this mechanism? So it's so important for me. If we do that, you can't just be an alcoholic or abuser for no reason.
Gotta show the reason.
Right? Why? Right? We have to humanize that. Yes. Because we walk out, I know all of you all have gone to schools, and our kids are dealing with homelessness. Our kids are dealing with, and so when we tell our stories, whether they are, you know, ghost stories or whether they are realistic fiction or historical fiction, if they see anything of them, they need to see the layer.
Yes.
Back.
Yes.
They need to see that, oh, this mom is not just abusive for being mean, verbally abusive, but there's a reason why. So it makes it even more humanizing because our reality is they do exist. We exist. Like we exist in families that are having these issues. So if you're struggling with it, just don't make that person one-dimensional because in the home, they're not one-dimensional. Dad does not just, you know, cuss out his family for no reason.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I love about all three of you and your work is that you are teaching young people, not just Black kids, but you're teaching anybody who reads your books that Black people are multidimensional. And for that, I thank you. As a mother of two young African-American sons, it's a miracle to me to be able to hop in the car and boom, turn on Tristan Strong and my kids are into it. You know what I mean? Like it's going to be a miracle for me to hand them this book where one kid one of my sons is browner than I am and my other son is light skinned, and like I'll be able to hand them Genesis Begins Again so they understand some of the background to that. When my little one is talking about ghosts in the house, I'm like, let me read you a story. Let me teach you about haints. This is a whole different type of thing. And so from me to you all, thank you for everything you do. Any parting words? Any last thoughts?
I just appreciate the different genres that is in this panel right now.
Yeah.
And there is so much more to that. And it just shows us that we can do anything. So keep this going, y'all.
Yeah, I just want to tell everyone that, especially the Black kids, that we see you and we're writing for you.
Yeah.
More than that, we got your back. You know what I mean? Like we're the elders now. We got your back. And, you know, sometimes that means not marching. Sometimes that means putting the resources up to help you gain the experience and continue to march when you need to. Pull them statues down. Pull them. I got you.
Knock them over.
I got you.
I will reward you for it. Well, thanks, y'all. I hope you have a good rest of the day. Happy Juneteenth.
Yes.
Bye.